Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here in my home country, Belgium. Thank you, Sarah. I think there is definitely some overlap, so that's a great introduction. First of all, I have to say these are my views. These are not Harvard's views, so that's an important statement to start with. Just so you know, this research was done in 2024 in the summer, so let's say around 14 months ago. We'll talk about the Yazidi community, and there are still Yazidi members in the Al-Hol refugee camp. Just so you know, when I was a medical student here in Belgium, I encountered a few Yazidi members, and that's how I became intrigued by this community. I am not a member of the Yazidi community. First of all, who are the Yazidis? When we talk about the Yazidis, we talk about the Yazidis in northern Iraq, in Sinjar. Sinjar is a region near to Syria, near to Turkey, in the west of Iraq. There is a mountain, the Sinjar mountain, and it's surrounded by approximately 81 Yazidi villages. The Yazidis have their very unique religion. It's the Yazidism. It incorporates elements from Islam, from Christianity, from Judaism, from Zoroastrianism, which is a very old Persian religion. Throughout history, they have wrongly been labeled as devil worshippers, people or not people of the book. For example, in Islam, we have the Quran. In the Christianity, we have the Bible. They don't have such a book. It's a very verbal religion. And due to these misunderstandings throughout history, they have been marginalized, discriminated, and persecuted. The Yazidi genocide by ISIS in 2014 was the 74th genocide on this community. Just try to remember, we have Mountain Sinjar, that's the Sinjar district, and in the north, in the Kurdish autonomous region, we have Duhok. Duhok and Sinjar were the research locations. So what happened in 2014? In the early morning of August the 3rd, ISIS attacked the Yazidis in Sinjar district. More than 400,000 Yazidis were able to flee to Syria, to Turkey, but of course most of them, the majority, to the northern part of Iraq, to the Kurdish part. 50,000 Yazidis were able to flee to Mount Sinjar, and I'm not sure if you remember these images. Yazidis during the summer in the mountain of Sinjar, encircled by ISIS fighters. Many Yazidis, mostly children and elders, died because of dehydration, no access to food, water, medication. But not all Yazidis were able to flee. More than 3,000 Yazidis were killed, executed, and more than 7,000 were kidnapped. Especially Yazidi women and girls were kidnapped. Yazidi men, older than 16, 17, were executed. Yazidi boys between 8 and 14 years old were kidnapped and forced to go to Quran schools, training camps, ISIS training camps, and forced to become a child soldier. I'll use the term kafek, children associated with armed forces and groups. That's the international term for child soldiers. Now, by the way, between 8 and 14, what did ISIS do? They checked their armpit hair. If there was hair, they are too old. If there was no hair, they were young enough to fight. So that was the idea. What do we know? We know that there are mental health disorders among Yazidi Kafeks, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder, depression, and anxiety. We also know there is a high demand for care, but limited availability. There is not much research available on this. We also know from one study that most Kafeks have never received any type of care. Also important to know, there are international legal frameworks. We have the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have many other conventions that state children should not be kidnapped nor participate in conflicts. And if there is an age, it should not be younger than 18 years old. The Rome Statute will also be important. It says that kidnapping and forcing children into combat is a war crime, and children should be after combat, children should be treated as victims and not as perpetrators. The research. The research question was, what, if any, mental health services are available for male former Yazidi Catholics in northern Iraq, in Sinjar and Duhok? The objective was, of course, to investigate the availability with the goal improving the availability, accessibility, and delivery of mental health and psychosocial support services for this specific group. The methods. First of all, it was a very modest research project. The circumstances were quite tough. When I was trying to travel to Iraq, there was some bombing happening, so it was quite challenging. And the involvement of the local research assistant, Nouri, was very important. So this was a mixed methods design. Basically, we have two parts. Part one, a survey. Part two, interviews. The surveys, we had 30 child soldiers and 10 providers. We asked questions in a survey like, where do you live? What is your income? Have you ever had mental health support? Why did you receive mental health or why not? How long? What kind of treatments? These kind of questions. For providers, similar, but also where do you provide care? What challenges do you face? These kind of questions. 30 child soldiers, 10 providers. For the interviews, the same 10 providers participated in the interviews. Out of 30 child soldiers, we selected 10 child soldiers to get involved in the interviews based on their location and experience with mental health care. Qual and quant part. The quant, the survey, 30 child soldiers, mean age 21, all born in Sinjar, and all of them were unemployed. I'll give more information about this in the interviews. Only 10 out of 30 wanted to receive care after captivity. By the way, we're talking about child soldiers who were kidnapped by ISIS, who were in combat and came back to Sinjar or Duhok. We're interviewing them. Out of 30, 9 received care, but they all acknowledged the high need for care. 21 out of 30 did not receive any care. The reasons? I didn't want to receive care or I didn't need it. But this was very much nuanced during the interviews. The providers, 50% or 5 female and 5 male from the Yazidi community, but also members of the Islamic community, and most of them had a master's in psychotherapy, which was developed after the genocide at the University of Duhok. Most of them, or all of them, worked for an NGO. The providers worked in Duhok, but also in Sinjar, but most of them in Duhok. In Duhok, we have IDP camps, internally displaced people camps, and they worked inside and outside these camps. They did say, we offer mental health to child soldiers. But the majority said that, but this was nuanced in the interviews as well. The interviews, again, out of 30, we selected 10 child soldiers, and the 10 same providers were in the interviews. We identified 7 key concepts. I'll discuss them briefly. First of all, locating care. When child soldiers came back, it was very difficult to find any support. They did not know what was available or where it was available. NGOs were established in 2014 after the atrocities to provide care. They did not expect to stay for more than 11 years. Today, they are still in the field working, giving the best of themselves, but there are challenges. Challenges, logistical, financial, personal challenges. The availability depends very much by location. Most care was available in Duhok, in the Kurdish Autonomous Region, less in Sinjar. And Sinjar is still a disputed territory claimed by two governments. It's an important area, and the infrastructure is still very limited. Also in Duhok, differences between IDP camps. Some camps had more access than other camps. And if someone needed specialized care like surgery, they had to travel from Sinjar to Duhok. The fourth one, women's care, was very much obvious from the beginning. Most care was available for Yazidi women, not for Yazidi men. They said Yazidi child soldiers were also welcome, but we don't have any specific programs for them. Qualified mental health professionals, of course, there was a high need, limited professionals, so there was a long waiting list, and this led to fake providers, people without real credential or formal credentials. And finally, a lack of medication. The final concept was seeking care but not receiving it, and the huge discrepancy between providers and CAFEX. CAFEX stating we wanted to receive care but nothing was available nor offered. Providers saying we didn't know about them or they didn't want to receive care. One child soldier said, many times my friends and I said it was like that. We, Yazidi boys, brought or created ISIS. Many times we went to organizations for help and they said they didn't know there were ISIS child soldiers. If my friends was not with me at that time, I would have cried because I saw all the suffering during captivity, and they, the organizations, told us we did not exist. Four very brief points of discussion. First of all, NGOs play an important role in Iraq. The second one, there is a lack of specific mental health support services for CAFEX. Sometimes CAFEX can join existing programs, but those are very general. By the way, Iraq has around 100 psychiatrists, which is around 0.34 per 100,000. Here in Belgium, we have 17 per 100,000. So there is a lack of professionals. There was a huge discrepancy between CAFEX and providers. And finally, international legal frameworks apply to Iraq, as Iraq has signed the CRC, the Children Convention, and the OPAC, the Optional Protocol. And the Yazidi Survival Law, a law accepted by the Iraqi parliament in 2021, was a reparation program, is great, but does not include all the survivors, and you have to submit a criminal complaint, which is a struggle, as former child soldiers may be prosecuted. Recommendations. 4 recommendations. It's important to establish a strong network of mental health facilities within the existing services. So do not come up with a new plan. It should be within existing facilities. It's important that we integrate those NGOs in the existing facilities, healthcare, education, community projects. It's important to develop MHPSS, or mental health and psychosocial support programs that are trauma-informed, culturally adapted, but also based on research for this specific group. And finally, it's important to align with international law and human rights. The conclusion of this research was there is some mental health services, or there are mental health services available, but mostly for women, not for former Yazidi child soldiers. And it's very important, as Sarah said, to focus on the reintegration, the recovery, and the rehabilitation of this community and this specific group. Thank you.